Let's not sugarcoat this. Syracuse's defense did not perform.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, it's good to be back for another Syracuse football season. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts, even when Syracuse football loses again to Tennessee 45-26. And the reason why I say again is because the last couple of years, they've taken a beating on the hardwood, and now they get on the gridiron, and it's the same old for Syracuse football. Now, it wasn't all negative, okay? We'll talk about some of the positives of this game for Syracuse in the second segment of this show. But my initial takeaway from this game, and feel free to agree or disagree with me right now in the comments section below, was that Syracuse defense was terrible in this one. We're going to break it all down here on today's post-game reaction podcast after Syracuse's 19-point loss to Tennessee. And before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I want to say this right now about defensive coordinator Elijah Robinson, because I know there's going to be a lot of talk on Twitter and maybe in this comment section about his job security, whether or not he should continue being the defensive coordinator of Syracuse football. Look, that just can't happen the rest of the season. Okay? Whether you want to fire him now or you don't want to fire him now, it doesn't matter. He's going to get the full year anyway. But this performance by this defense cannot continue the rest of this season. And most of the damage was really done in the first half. First of all, let's backtrack a little bit. Syracuse football falls behind 17-0 to Tennessee in the first quarter, which I know we all remember the Miami comeback and how amazing that was, coming back from 21-0. They also had that big comeback against Virginia Tech last year. Spoiler alert, when you fall behind big at any point in a football game, it is very, very difficult to come back and win. And you got to give a little bit of credit to Syracuse football because they fell behind 17-0. So that's 17 points at the end of the first quarter. They only lost by 19. So the rest of the way was only a 2-point margin of deficit. But it really doesn't matter because at that point, Tennessee, you just play match play. You're up 17 points. Just match whatever your opponent is doing. That's exactly what they did, and they got a 45-26 win. This defense was awful. It was awful. And Tennessee's negative plays, for the most part, were really self-inflicted. Go back into that first quarter, the fumble by Tennessee, it was a mis-exchange by Joey Aguilar and whoever was the running back in at the time for Tennessee. Of course, they rotated the three running backs like we all predicted here on Locked On Syracuse. And the incompletions, for the most part for Syracuse, it wasn't because of outstanding defensive play and pass breakups. It was mostly because Joey Aguilar was missing throws or his wide receivers were dropping passes. So even when Tennessee did something wrong, was it really Syracuse that was forcing Tennessee to do something wrong? Or was it just Tennessee making self-inflicted mistakes? I'm leaning more towards the latter in this one. The stats in the first half are mind-boggling. Tennessee had 336 total yards. They averaged nearly 9 yards per play. That means every single time they run a play, they were nearly getting a first down on average in the first half. They ran the football in the first half for nearly 160 yards. And Joey Aguilar, it wasn't like he was all that great either. He was 9 for 18 in this one, in the first half, I should say. And Syracuse, of course, got no pressure in the first half or throughout the entirety of the game. Now, the second half, Syracuse's defense was a little better. They got a couple of stops. They got a couple of 3-and-outs, or really, I think it was 1 3-and-out, but they did get some stops in the second half. But I'm not going to sit here and throw a party about how great the Syracuse defense was in the second half because they still let up 14 points. So that's a good half for Syracuse football defense, allowing 14 points. See what I mean here? This defensive performance was just simply unacceptable, and it cannot continue the rest of the way. Let's get into some of the big plays that I thought really turned this game. Demetrius Samuel Jr. Now, it's really hard to criticize him all that much. He's 17 years old. He's a true freshman, second youngest player in all of college football. The fact that he is on the field is really big for Syracuse football because he's going to have his growing pains. Okay? He'll have his growing pains in this season. He'll have his ups. He'll have his downs. But he's so young and he's so talented. But let's call it like it is. He got beat in this game in the second quarter by Braylon Staley on a deep post for a 73-yard touchdown. It wasn't entirely his fault, but he did get beat, and it made it 24-7 Tennessee after Syracuse had finally gotten on the board with a touchdown to make it 17-7 in this one. My issue here, and why I have a hard time also criticizing Samuel beyond just the fact that he's a young player or the fact that he got beat, where's the safety help on that play? Where's the safety help? The coach's job is to put players in the best position to succeed. In that situation, yes, Syracuse is gearing up to stop the run. They got 7 guys in the box. But Tennessee's only got 2 guys lined up wide. There is no reason to have your safeties drop back intermediate. You need them back because you know Tennessee, if they do play action, they're definitely going to attack this Syracuse cornerback room that had 2 new guys playing, 2 new guys that were starting in Demetrius Samuel and Chris Peel. So that's partially also on Elijah Robinson. Someone has to be giving help deep in the field, and nobody was. So Braylon Staley, to his credit, he beats Demetrius Samuel on the post. Joey Aguilar makes a perfect throw. He was not perfect this afternoon, but when Tennessee called upon him to make a play, especially in that situation, he certainly did. So that play was awful, and it was a real buzzkill because Syracuse had finally gotten on the board to make it 17-7, and right away in one play, it's 24-7. Not good. And then the end of the first half, I thought was the real nail in the coffin for Syracuse football. You might disagree with me on that and say it was the interception and then the fumble early in the third quarter. To me, it was really the end of the first half in this one because Syracuse, to their credit, they keep fighting. They get within 10 after a clever play design to free up Jonte Cook. Yeah, it was a pick play, and you might have been able to call offensive pass interference on it, but they didn't call offensive pass interference, and Justice Ross Simmons did a nice job presenting like he was running an actual curl route. So it doesn't get called. Jonte Cook is free in the corner for a touchdown, 24-14 with 1:55 left on the clock. Syracuse is in the game, and here's what I was thinking in this exact moment. Because Syracuse is going to get the ball to start the second half. Okay, Syracuse defense, I'll sign for a field goal here. If you let Tennessee go down the field, but you hold them to 3, that's not the end of the world. We can deal with the 13-point first half deficit. Just don't allow a touchdown. A punt would be great. A turnover would be great. But I'll sign for a field goal down 13 with the ball to start the next half. First play is fine. So it creates a 2nd and 10. And I don't even know what you want me to say on this. We talked about this a lot here on Locked On Syracuse, how when the play presents itself, Syracuse is going to have to make the play. Tank Wilson has Deshaun Bishop dead to rights. He's like 4 or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You're about to make it 3rd and 14, 3rd and 15. You're going to get the ball again at that rate because you're probably going to stop Tennessee on 3rd and long. You might get the ball and you might get more points before the end of the half. And who knows what happens if Tank Wilson can make that tackle, but he just loses him. And not only does he lose him, then you have Devin Grant missing a tackle at the line of scrimmage on Deshaun Bishop. And so a negative 4-yard play becomes a 47-yard run for Tennessee, and it sets up a killer touchdown which, by the way, Syracuse also got a little bit screwed on it because it looked like Tennessee had scored with about 30-ish seconds left in the first half. So there was maybe enough time to do something at the end of the half for Syracuse, but it gets overturned on review. The play clock dwindles down a little bit more. And next thing you know, there's only 21 seconds left on the clock when Tennessee inevitably punches it into the end zone. But it's all set up from the fact that Deshaun Bishop turns a huge loss into a 47-yard run. And that's the other thing that just drives me nuts. It's one thing when you don't make that tackle if you're Tank Wilson. It's another thing if you're Devin Grant and you don't make the tackle at the line of scrimmage. But it had to turn into a 47-yard run. We could have even lived with a 10-yard run. I'd be mad at it, but we could live with that. 47-yard run, all of a sudden Tennessee is thinking touchdown instead of field goal. It was just ugly. Ugly performance by this defense, top to bottom, coaching, players. Really on this defense in general, I can't really point to anyone and say that they really had a good game. I mean, maybe you want to argue Deuce Chestnut to me, fine. I'm sure you can go check the Pro Football Focus grades and they'll tell you this guy played well, this guy didn't play well. My eyes told me that nobody really for Syracuse had a good game on defense. But hey, agree with me, disagree with me, comment your thoughts in the comment section below. So that was the bad for Syracuse football in this one, in their 45-26 loss to Tennessee. The good news we'll get into in just a moment. I thought the offense was actually pretty good against a very difficult Tennessee defense, and the special teams really had no hiccups. Plus, Fran Brown did not make the best decision early in the fourth quarter. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Syracuse. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices all of a sudden jumping at the checkout, right? You're ready to purchase a ticket for $50. Next thing you know, you get the checkout. How come it's all of a sudden $75? That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to store last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is simply what you are going to pay. And honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever used to buy tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is a post-game reaction podcast to Syracuse losing down in Atlanta, Georgia to Tennessee, 45-26. We just talked about the ugly defensive performance, if you want to call it a performance, by the Orange in this one, but it wasn't all that bad. If we're being honest, it was not all that bad for Syracuse. No, we'll get into it in the next segment. I do not think that the season is over for Syracuse. They're going 3-9. They suck, this, that, the other. No. I do think there were some positive takeaways for this game, and I want to be fair, okay? The offense against a very good Tennessee defense. That was the one thing we really knew about heading into this game was how good that Tennessee defense is, and they performed as advertised. And yet, I thought Syracuse played a pretty good game on offense. Were they perfect? No, but they scored 26 points. They were able to move the ball for 377 total yards. It was not all that bad, and so they're going to be able to put up points when they do get to go up against some of the lesser opponents on their schedule. They don't have a lot of them, but when they do go up against maybe some other teams, they're going to be able to move the ball better than what they did against Tennessee. The running game, I thought Yasin Willis looked terrific. He was outstanding. If we get into the numbers here for Yasin Willis, 23 carries, 91 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, obviously impressive. Only 4 yards per carry. I don't think that does him justice. I'm very curious to see what his rushing yards above expected were. First carry of the year, he runs a guy over. I mean, he looked shiftier than he did last year, which was a concern I had for Yasin Willis because he's a big, bruising running back. but he showcased that he's pretty nimble too, especially in that open field. And I think him and Will Nixon are going to form a very good running back duo. I don't think Syracuse in this game, and this with all due respect to him, I don't think the issue with this game was, wow, they were missing LaQuint Allen. I don't think that was the problem at all for Syracuse. Yasin Willis did great. Will Nixon was good as well. So this running game, I think for Syracuse, is going to be okay. Passing game, it could definitely be better. I don't know if the stats really do Steve Angeli justice for this one, but I thought Angeli played a decent game. I thought his receivers could have done a better job at times separating. That's why you sometimes saw on third downs where Angeli's throwing a football down the sideline, nobody there, or it looked like it could be picked. Reality is at some point, sometimes your receivers also have to help you out. I know Kyle McCord last year did a better job of maybe throwing guys open, but Steve Angeli played a fine game in this one. Did have a couple of mistakes that we can get into right now. The fumble in the first quarter by Angeli, which was a scoop and score, led to the Tennessee 17-0 start. That was partially on Angeli and partially on the offensive line. The offensive line did not give Steve Angeli any time really in the pocket there. And if you're Steve Angeli in the pocket, you got to have two hands on the football. If you have two hands on the football, you get sacked, and it's 2nd and 13. Okay, you can live with that. You cannot live with a scoop and score in that situation. So Steve Angeli, he's got to have two hands on the ball there. The interception, I didn't really think was on Steve Angeli. It was just a great play by the Tennessee defense. It was early in the third quarter. Unfortunately, it happened in the red zone. Or I should say, it set up Tennessee in the red zone, and it was really a backbreaker for Syracuse. But I give more credit to the Tennessee defense on that one than I put blame on Steve Angeli. Some great plays he made. That fourth down throw in the second quarter to Jonte Cook was money. It was a 4th and 10. They're down 17 points. They desperately needed something to go right. And that was a moment in this game where I felt, if they don't get this 4th and 10 in Tennessee territory, it's over. Like, it would have been over right then and there, but Steve Angeli threw a dart over the middle of the field to Jonte Cook, pun intended. Great throw. Great play by Steve Angeli. Also had a great escape in the fourth quarter. He hit David Clement, the tight end, for a first down on a 4th down play. And it really set up the touchdown that made it 38-26 Tennessee early in the fourth. It kept Syracuse alive. See, that's the thing with Syracuse. They were not really fully dead throughout this game until the very end of the fourth quarter. They weren't fully out of it until the end. That's why when I see 19 points, I do think it's a little bit deceptive. Syracuse just could not get the garbage time touchdown at the end of the half, which would have helped, which would have led to them covering in this game for those that are interested. They did not. But that touchdown to make it 38-26, it kept Syracuse alive. Now, unfortunately, and this is really where I get to my issue with Fran Brown, and I know criticizing Fran Brown is not the most popular thing to do, but I have to be fair here. I did not like his decision to go for 2 early in the fourth quarter when they are down 12 points. The first one, I will defend Fran Brown. When they scored the touchdown to, I believe, make it 38-20 in the third quarter, in that situation, you have to go for 2. You have to chase the points because your defense to that point has not gotten off the field against this Tennessee offense. And if you get the 2-point conversion, you're only down 16. So therefore, you could see the logic. Down 16 is only 2 possessions, and you need as many possessions as possible, especially if this defense is not going to get off the field. So in that situation, I understand going for 2, and I thought it was the right move to go for 2 in the third quarter there. But early in the fourth quarter, down 12, you cannot take the field goal out of play. No matter what, whether Syracuse gets the 2-point conversion, whether they don't get the 2-point conversion in this scenario, they are going to be down 2 possessions. It's just a matter of, are they down 10 points? If you go for 1 and you assumingly get it, you're down 11 points. If you go for 2 and you don't get it, you're down 12 points. But in 2 of those 3 scenarios, a field goal can help you out. No matter what, whether you get it or you kick for an extra point, you still need a field goal to try to tie the game versus Tennessee. But because you went for 2 and you did not get it, field goal's now out of the picture. So when Syracuse did get the ball back, down 12 points in the fourth quarter, where there was still that glimmer of hope for Syracuse to maybe pull off a miracle comeback, well, the field goal in this situation doesn't help them. So if they get stuck in a 4th and 15 situation at the Tennessee 30, they can't kick the field goal. They have to go for it because Fran Brown decided to go for 2 and get a little greedy and chase the points to try to make it a 10-point game instead of just settling for 1 and making it an 11-point game. That was my real issue with Fran Brown in this game. That, aside from that, a lot of it I think is on the defensive coordinator with the defense. With the special teams, this was a positive here. I want to give a big shout out to new special teams coordinator Ricky Brumfield. Special teams was a big problem for Syracuse a year ago. You think about the offense, you think about the defense. The worst of the 3 units last year was actually the special teams. That's right. The special teams was worse than the defense. Ricky Brumfield's a new coordinator. He comes in, and at least in this game, there were really no special teams hiccups at all. I didn't notice really anything for Syracuse in that regard, which is a good thing. You don't really want to notice the special teams with your team unless it's in a positive light, like a kick return, a punt return. There were no problems with Syracuse on special teams. The only scare was in the third quarter. Syracuse is fielding a punt, and the ball kind of checks up early, and it may have glanced off Davian Kerr's towel. The officials on the field call it initially Syracuse ball, so it did not touch Davian Kerr's towel. They go to review. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but because the call on the field was that it did not touch Davian Kerr, it was hard to overturn it. I think Tennessee fans, you have a right to maybe be a little bit upset about that, but I'm trying to call it down the middle. I'm trying to take my Syracuse orange colored glasses off in that play. It turned out to be insignificant anyway, but I honestly thought this should not be overturned. You called that it didn't touch him on the field. The replay was not conclusive, in my opinion, but that was it. And even if the officials do overturn it, that would have been just super unlucky. I don't know what you want Davian Kerr to do there. I mean, the ball just hits his towel. But no harm, no foul. Wasn't called. We're good. Special teams had no problems. Any positive takeaways from you? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Coming up, we'll talk about the road ahead for Syracuse football. And again, I do not think that this season is over. Now, stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Hey, Locked On Syracuse fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Thank you so much for making it to this point of the podcast. I hope that means you enjoy Locked On Syracuse, even though the Orange did not win today. They lose to Tennessee 45-26. If you enjoy Locked On Syracuse, please feel free. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel grow to reach all Syracuse Orange fans. Let's talk about the road ahead for Syracuse football. This season is not over. I would not write Syracuse football off just yet. And if you are saying that the Syracuse season is over, then what I would say to you is, what were your expectations for Syracuse this season? And maybe that's why I'm not super duper mad during this post-game reaction podcast. I did not think Syracuse was going to win this game, and they didn't. Now, I'm still upset. I'm still disappointed, particularly how they started the game and the defense, but I was able to see some of the positives against a very good Tennessee team. Next week for Syracuse, they got to be much better. They're playing UConn at home. This is a game where Syracuse football simply cannot lose. Okay, if Syracuse loses to UConn next week, it's going to be a very, very different mood here on Locked On Syracuse. Good news is I don't think they're going to lose to UConn. I think they will look much better against UConn. The following week is Colgate. That's your game to really get all fat and happy. You're playing an FCS opponent. Syracuse, knock on wood, has never lost to an FCS opponent. I do not think that's going to change on Friday night, a couple of weeks from now. And then after that, Syracuse will play another really, really difficult team. They're going to go on the road for a true road game at Clemson. Can Syracuse still make a bowl this season? From what I saw today, absolutely. Absolutely, they can make a bowl. As far as, ACC, championship game, college football playoff, it goes back to what were your expectations heading into this season and heading into this game. Bowl is still very much in play. We're one game in. Think about what happened last year to NC State and how they got throttled by Tennessee. It was much worse than what we saw today. Much worse. They still made a bowl. They made it. Now, you may not care all that much about Syracuse making a bowl. I can't help you in that regard, but I do think that this Syracuse team can absolutely make a bowl. They still have, I think, a pretty good offense. Their running game looks pretty good with Yasin Willis and Will Nixon. The passing game should get better. I would like to see Darryl Gill a little bit more involved. It wasn't really until the very end of the game he got involved. Jonte Cook looked pretty good in this one. Tight ends could be used a little bit more as well if you're Syracuse. But overall, I think this is still a pretty good team. It was a bad matchup against Tennessee. Tennessee loves to run the football. That's their bread and butter. Syracuse from last year, and so far Syracuse this year, they have not shown that they can really stop the run. So is the season over? They can easily make a bowl game, in my opinion, but comment your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you still think that Syracuse football can at least make a bowl in 2025? Now, as far as what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse here in the near future, tomorrow we'll have another podcast. We'll do a fan reaction podcast. We'll go through some of your takes of this game, and we will react to them on a full podcast tomorrow. And then on Monday, big picture takeaways from week one. That's all coming up on Locked On Syracuse here in the near future. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. And if you really enjoy Locked On Syracuse, be sure to hit subscribe and just tell one or two of your friends about Locked On Syracuse so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. Plus, by subscribing, it's completely free and allows the channel to show up directly on your feed. Thank you all so much for your support throughout the offseason. And we will do a post-game reaction podcast after every single Syracuse football game. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And I'll see you all again soon.